Sam Altman, Bill Gates, Vinod Khosla, Jensen Huang, Jeff Hinton, they all disagree too. Some of them believe that all jobs are going to be replaced in 5 to 10 years. Some people believe that let's be a plumber. I don't think anything is catastrophic is going to happen in the next couple of years.
Where does Indian academia and research stand in this world of AI?
India is number one in global skill penetration. 16% of world's AI talent comes from India. It's fourth in global vibrancy ranking. But we are 14th in the amount and quality of research that we produce.
Is it the private sector that needs to take the lead here? Is it the government that needs to take the lead here? Is it the educational institutions? Does it have to be a collaborative effort across all three? How are you thinking about the skills that will be essential for the future crop of engineers and scientists and researchers training at institutes like IIT Delhi?
I asked my students recently, how many of you have done programming in this language? Many of them raised their hands. And I then asked them, how many of you have done it by yourself without using an LLM? And almost all hands went up. Unfortunately, the teachers today are not able to control how the students use LLMs. This is not a global south problem. This is the problem everywhere in the world. Our students are learning less than what they were learning a couple of years ago. We do not have enough professors in our country or in most global south countries. In Brazil, in Venezuela, in Sri Lanka, in Thailand, in Malaysia, do they have enough professors of the highest quality? And the answer will be unequivocally no. I think our country has a lot to offer. The real advantage we can have in India is that we have sophisticated people who understand these technologies deeply and can innovate on top of them.
Welcome to the podcast, Mausam.
Thank you, Anirudh. I'm excited to be here.
I'm delighted to have you with us today. Thank you for taking the time. One of the people I was talking to recently, Mausam, was Professor Stuart Russell, who's at Berkeley. One of the things that we started discussing on that front was how currently the world seems to have adopted one approach, by and large, which is to build larger and larger models, more and more energy guzzling models, maybe more and more parameters, etc., as the way to achieve better LLMs, more intelligent models, and so on and so forth. Right? So the optimization seems to be larger and larger. If I am larger, I'm better. Of course, from an energy standpoint, that doesn't seem like the right approach either. We were drawing parallels with the Industrial Revolution in our conversation. I wanted to bring your views onto that. Do you think that the world has become, or the world of AI researchers, whether sitting in academic institutions or within the large corporations that are engaged in this great AI race, do you think that we have become blinded to other approaches, other fundamentally different approaches? And if so, why is that? Because from a world of venture capital or startups, one of the things that you always look out for is for people to approach the same problem but from multiple angles, and then you hope that the marketplace will help determine the best, most efficient approach, right? But that doesn't seem to necessarily be happening right now. But where do you stand on that?
That's a great question, and of course, it's a slightly deeper question, but it's not as deep in terms of understanding where we are in the AI progress. So let me give you a very simplistic answer. Then we can also, delve deeper. The simplistic answer is that there were many different families of modeling. Okay, so Pedro Domingos, in his book called The Master Algorithm, I think he lays out 5 tribes. Okay, one of the tribes is the tribe that we are all using, right? He calls it tribes, which is the neural modeling. But then there is the Bayesian modeling, then there is the evolutionary modeling, then there's the logical modeling, and there's a fifth which I can't remember at the top of my head. And different people were working on different styles of approaches. It is, however, true that at any given point in time, one approach has becomes the mainstream. What happened is that neural modeling, starting 2012, 2013, with the advent of GPU architectures, GPU chips that NVIDIA, I don't know if you know, NVIDIA brought them out for video games. Somebody in Toronto, a student of Geoff Hinton, his name was Alex Krzyzewski, he realized that these GPUs can actually scale up the neural modeling that has been happening for many years but has really not become mainstream. He showed an architecture called AlexNet, and in 1 year, and for the longest year, the accuracy was going from one point, half a point, 0.3 points, 0.4 points, and in one shot, he was able to improve it 10 plus points and so on. And everybody eyes got opened as to what just happened, right? When such a disruptive event happens, and this didn't only happen for vision, which Alex worked on, this also happened in audio or speech recognition. In a few years, we went from 75% to almost 90%, 95%. I mean, the speed of progress that happened at that point in time was unimaginable. We were just amazed. We were left out of ground because we have been all exploring different things. And there were these few researchers which were almost ostracized. They were not really mainstream researchers. Jeff Hinton, Jan LeCun, Yoshua Bengio, many
People
of
who are
them were
now considered godfathers of AI,
they are
and
not fathers of AI, right? But the reason they are fathers of AI is not for no reason. They kept working on a technology that the whole community said is not useful. In fact, their papers will not get published. They would not be welcome in terms of, the papers will not be welcome.
yeah.
Many people couldn't be even in the US because US often chases the thing. I mean, the funding structures are different. You can actually take more risks outside US. So two of them were in Canada. The point is that this became mainstream because it offered immense value.
Awesome. We've got a great, I think, sense of the landscape of AI research, both globally and what researchers like you, younger researchers, the more traditional researchers are doing, and the different schools of thought or tribes or religions, as you call them, are working on. Let's now move to India. With the upcoming India AI Summit, of course, there's a focus on India, but really on the broader global South also, on where will the global South and India stand in this world of AI research. As most reports like the Stanford AI Index report and many other general reports suggest the concentration of research and talent, especially in the world of AI, and even maybe one can argue even more broadly in technology, but definitely in the case of AI, seems to be concentrated. Given that context, what I wanted to maybe spend a few minutes on with you is to help understand, where does Indian academia and research stand in this world of AI? What are some of maybe the strengths, and what are maybe some of the things that Indian academia and research need to work on, need to improve upon, so that we can, as an Indian academic research community, be globally competitive?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something I've been thinking a lot about. So I'll give you a few indicators first. So many reports say that India is number one in global skill penetration. That 16% of world's AI talent comes from India. That it's fourth in global vibrancy ranking. Okay, but we are 14th in the amount and quality of research that we produce. We produce the world's 1.4% of papers. The very recent conference, Triple AI 2026, that was just held in Singapore, had about 25,000 authors submit papers. 500 of them were from India. That pitches us at about 2% of the authors. Actually, what is happening is China is overtaking by leaps and bounds. So China is now writing 60% of papers, believe it or not. And US is writing maybe whatever 30%, or I don't know exact numbers, but basically much less than what they were writing in terms of the percentage. And India's share has been consistently small. If you look at the fractions, maybe it's moving up very tiny, but it's really not at an inflection point by any stretch of imagination. And that is really worrisome to me and people like us who have been working very hard to establish our careers in India and to really develop. I often say this, and people feel that I say this because I am a professor, but I really feel that professors really are the reason that energizes the system in the following way. Because professors are deep. They train the high quality talent. They therefore train the teachers. These teachers train the students. These students become engineers. If you really want lots of engineers doing AI in our country, you want to train them. I mean, there will be people who will quote unquote upskill them by taking an evening course and do better, whatever. But you really want high quality talent, then you want a lot of AI engineers trained in the recent most AI technologies. That would be done by lots of teachers because IIT professors will only be able to train like 100 people a year, and that is not enough, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, many of them will go everywhere in the world. So we want the tier 2 colleges to have amazing teachers, and they will have amazing teachers if they get trained by the professors. That means we need to have a lot of really good professors. So the real advantage we can have in India is that if we have sophisticated people, people who understand these technologies deeply and can innovate on top of them when you are stuck, right? And then that will take the accuracy from 67% to 82% or whatever it is, right? I'm saying. So we do not have, and I have said this categorically, enough professors in our country or in most global south countries. I mean, people in Brazil, people in Venezuela, people in Sri Lanka, people in Thailand, people in Malaysia. Do they have enough professors of the highest quality? And the answer will be unequivocally no. That is number one. Number two is, in order to really create good AI startups, technologies, education, everything, we need typically three to four things. One is we need funding, we need people, we need data, and we need compute. Now, our government has actually worked very hard to establish centers of excellence and provide large amounts of monies to various institutions. They also have startup programs. This that they are. I would say that in my experience, in my understanding, the government has done remarkably well in at least thinking for the future. Okay. And the Niti Aayog, I was engaged with them from 2017 onwards. I remember Jensen Huang actually gave a lecture to all the cabinet of ministers way back in 2017-18, where they understood the importance. So basically, they have understood the importance of AI without question, right? And now even other areas like quantum and so on. This is a fresh change with regards to how we used to be. We were always reactive. The point is that if we move with the speed that we are moving, that's not enough in the very fast changing environments. Because we did not have enough compute right at our disposal, when these chat GPTs were happening in 2022 and even earlier, we were slow to respond. We could not have created a sovereign LLM then because it requires a certain amount of compute, which is huge. No company had it, so we just couldn't even think about it. And if you thought about it, we didn't have the right set of people. Of course, we have some people, if they come together, they can create one large sovereign LLM. I'm not saying they can't, but then we didn't have the compute. Our data has been there, but it has still been in silos, and we have not done a great job of bringing it together, but we have done a decent job. So I would say that data we are better at. Compute we have not been there enough of, and I think maybe now we are starting to see some compute coming together, and high quality talent we really don't. So, with regards to this setup, now the answers are very simple. We need to make our processes such that we can move very fast and we can really create these large resources quickly. That will require us to rethink our processes, which is very hard. We need to somehow create a an attractive environment for top talent to come back to our country. Now, how that would happen, I think our country has a lot to offer with regards to interesting problems, the impact, the scale at which we can work on. It's not like, we are in the middle of nothing. We have a lot to offer.
I think this is an important problem for countries in the global south to solve, including in India. Is it the private sector that needs to take the lead here? Is it the government that needs to take the lead here? Is it the educational institutions themselves that need to take the lead here? Does it have to be a collaborative effort across all three, let's say, of these sectors, the academic, the industry, and the government? How do you think about who needs to do what in order to make the kind of ecosystem improvements that you are suggesting are critical for the research ecosystem then to thrive?
I think that's a valid question. That's a very, very valuable question. Let's think about this. So academia has a role. The role is to produce deep talent and to do research. They are limited to proofs of concept. If you start thinking of academicians as engineers who will lead a team to create a product, I think we will lose the battle. Okay, so
Correct.
that is where I am very clear. Academicians can be consultants, they can be intellectual advisors, but they will not handle the day to day. It's very, very clear to me. In fact, I think this is where the government has maybe not taken the wisest decisions, because they have given a lot of these centers of excellence with the mandate to actually do real impact to academia by through Section 8 companies. And so what they expect is that some of these professors will now be doing that kind of work. Neither are professors skilled for this kind of work. and nor would generally the incentive structures of these companies align with attracting top quality talent, engineering talent, and so on. So,
Yeah.
there will be some issues. I really hope they succeed. Maybe this would be, I would be happily surprised, pleasantly surprised. But my prior on these is that that should not have been given to academia. Academia should have been the intellectual, should have taken the intellectual ownership, but the work should have been independent and given. Secondly, what is the government role? Right, that's a very, very, very important question. In an ideal world, the government should create policies so that people can be successful. If government has to give their own, taxpayers money for this to create compute for creating our products, I think we are losing something somewhere. Government's job is to make it seamless for the companies to private players. I mean, OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, you took DeepSeek. They have none of them have been created by a government. The government is not the right place to create products. They are right place to create policies so that the products can be created seamlessly. The earlier level, we are always IT services. India is known for IT services. It is not known for IT products at the cutting edge. So I think it's a whole ecosystem thing. The IT services should have led to creating strong IT products from our country. So our startups, even when they think of good ideas here, they go to the and they set up their shop in the Silicon Valley. That should not have been there. So it's a matter of the ecosystem. So I think it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think all fair points. I think one of the key trends that I think reports have spoken about. I think people in the industry also are seeing that the cutting edge research in AI is also now moving from what might have been traditional academic institutions to actually within the corporates that are fighting this global AI race, right? That we've referred to,
Yeah,
and that clearly is an indicator that the research also has to be driven to a fair extent, to a large extent, let's say maybe not exclusively, but to a large extent by the private sector, where then they need to see the incentives for what they will seek to gain by investing in research within their domains, etc. Right? So a telecom company or a pharma company or a tech company or an IT services company has to see the value in spending that money on researchers and R&D verticals within their companies for their primary corporate objectives, right, from a
right,
profit standpoint as well.
right.
And I think that's really the thing to solve for maybe today, because the resources that the private sector today is commanding and can actually dedicate, let's say, right? The government, of course, also has a lot of resources, but it has other priorities as well, of course, as a socio-economic and socio-political objectives. But the corporate sector could start to dedicate more resources and build the kind of ecosystems that you've suggested we need. Let me now
As a
move.
case in point, let me just say one very important thing. Think about what are the large LLMs that have come out. It's OpenAI, Anthropic, maybe Meta has Llama family of models.
Yeah,
It's Gemini, right? And Mistral. If you look at these, how many of these companies have a research team in India? OpenAI doesn't. They have a new office. They are here only to sell, right? It's a sales office. Anthropic doesn't. Mistral doesn't, to the best of my knowledge. Meta doesn't, to the best of my knowledge, at that level. Only Gemini does. Only Google does. Google Research Center and Google DeepMind has an office in Bangalore. And now, till date, the only LLM of that level which has Indian collaborators from India, in contributions from India, is Gemini. So Gemini in Google has, I know several of my students from IIT Delhi have actually contributed to the building of Gemini. This has only happened because there was a strong Google Research Center. But we did not have research centers of Meta and OpenAI and other places in our country. I think this is a loss.
yeah. Let me now move to a different aspect of maybe the same problem, which is if the research is not happening and the top tier researchers are not sitting in India and the global south, and they don't have the kind of platforms and ecosystems that they need, platforms in the sense of, let's say, a Google Research Center or ecosystems like we've been discussing, then of course the first instinct is to say, let's bring talent back, right, from the US. The Chinese have very famously tried to do that as well, to large extent, people say successfully. The other approach here could also be, of course, more cooperation amongst the global south. And so I wanted to get your views on that, especially as the India AI Summit comes up, and the big focus there is cooperation between the global south countries as well. And global south, let's say broadly defined, let's talk about the US and China being as these two giants in the world of AI, and really then everyone else. How do you sense collaboration between countries that are not the US or China today could be enhanced as a way to maybe solve some of the problems that are really constraining countries that are not the US or China?
So, A, I will qualify your question just a little bit. I don't think we are not doing high quality research in India. That's very important to qualify. We are. It's not the it's the quantity of high quality research that is the question here. Okay, so this is very important. Please don't get me wrong. There are lots of really amazing researchers in our country, and I can name them. But the problem is that I can name them on the fingers. So it's the quantity. Okay, whenever I go to some of these India X meetings, and because I live in Delhi, I as a professor in AI, I get invited to more than my fair share. I try to see how they think of us, and more often than not, I come back a little bit disappointed. Not that they don't think of us highly, they do, but they think of us as scale enhancers, not fundamental innovators. Okay, so whenever they say that, oh, we AI in India or India poses a set of opportunities and challenges, they think of us as a large market.
Yeah.
In a European country, you are catering to a very small number of people. In India, you are catering to such a large number of people. To do that, you have to solve large scale problem, and let us solve the scale problem for India, and so on. So they think of us as a source of problems and an opportunity to showcase solutions. They don't think us as partners who will be developing solutions in India. And this, of course, irks me to some extent, because I think of us as solution providers as well to some large extent. If we take the pure global south view, then I think that problem may not be there, right? Because I'm thinking about India, Europe, India, US, and so on. So for this view is true for that
Those-
discussion.
Yeah.
But if I start thinking about India, Japan, India, Korea, India, I don't know, Brazil, whatever, right? I think these collaborations may be more on an even
Okay.
footing. The Japanese researchers are amazing. There are some very good researchers in Korea. There's some amazing researchers in Singapore. I think the overall quantity of researchers in those countries may be even less than what India has, because India is much larger. Of course, we should have been much larger because of our population. We have established that we are not there yet. But at least for these small countries, which are also not at that level of I think the conversation could be much more uh, respectful on the intellectual front as well. And now, what can we do would require the governments to think about processes, mechanisms for exchange, for collaborative research, to think about their problems solved in here, think about our problems solved there. Japan also has a much stronger robotics point of view, so maybe we can do more things by bringing our AI expertise with their robotics expertise. We'll have to think through this, but I think that we should do more on the global south collaboration than we have been doing. Now, once we start going to other countries like Malaysia, Thailand, Cambodia, or Mexico, and so on, unfortunately, the amount of research that is happening in those countries is much smaller. Right? So they have the same problem that we have, but even strong more than us. So there, if we do those collaborations, it is possible that we solve problems for them because they don't have the abilities. So I think it would be the collaboration would look different depending upon who we are speaking to. If we are speaking to a US, then we would be the more likely the scale uh, enhancers. If we are speaking to maybe some countries, then we may be in equal footing, and then for other countries we may be the inter. So we'll have to think about all these possibilities. But I think more conversations need to happen, and more countries need to get together. And I'm really excited that India AI Impact Summit is going to happen on 20th February. And 18th February, we are also putting together a very amazing program for a research symposium. Really top quality speakers are coming. We also have a Global South showcase there where research happening in India, but also in some of the other Global South countries will be presented. And so it's a great event, and I really invite everybody to attend because it hopefully will open our eyes and hopefully will allow us to do all these collaboration discussions much better because all these people will be there from all countries.
Yeah, no, great. Let me now move to the future, right? And future from a student standpoint, from a layperson standpoint, right? As someone who's now been in the field of AI for a long time, you've studied at IIT Delhi. Now you're back as a professor. You've done your PhD abroad. You've been seeing the field evolve from various standpoints. As you now teach at IIT Delhi, Mausam, how are you thinking about the skills that will be essential for the future crop of engineers and scientists and researchers that we are training at institutes like IIT Delhi, but also more broadly across India?
Yeah, we should all be astrologers at this point. Nobody knows. With this exponential growth, it is very hard to say. But let me
Yeah.
just say what I feel at the moment. By the way, as we right, Sam Altman, Bill Gates, Vinod Khosla, Jensen Huang, Jeff Hinton, they all disagree too, right? Some of them believe that all jobs are going to be replaced in 5 to 10 years. Some people believe that let's be a plumber, let's be a hands-on person requiring manual dexterity because robotics is really far behind. I want to make 2 points. First of all, even if AI becomes powerful to a level that humans are not needed as much, even if I do not believe that the speed of change would be very fast
Hmm.
because our societies, our organizational setups take time to respond. Okay, so that's the first thing. So I don't think anything is catastrophic is going to happen in the next couple of years, but we are now thinking about our children and what they would do and what they should have. I think the analytical thinking ability is the paramount for somebody like me. Again, I am talking about engineering and science disciplines and so on and so forth. Maybe coding is not needed, maybe, right, as much. But the ability to think about what to code and to analyze and to say that this code has been good and to own the responsibility of what comes out, I think these are important. It will require fundamental first principle thinking ability. So, developing that analytical ability is critically important. Whether you exercise it in this job or that job remains to be seen on how the different sectors evolve. Okay, that's the first thing. I do not believe that knowledge is going to be the key here because you can gain knowledge and LLM can also gain knowledge. If you don't have some knowledge, LLM can point you to that knowledge. You should have the ability to absorb that knowledge and think from first principles. If you have that, that is going to stay forever, irrespective of what you end up doing. I think at some point, having leadership skills is still going to be important, but there is some discussion that I want to have with how to get there. But let's come back to that in a minute. The skill of creativity. Now, creativity is a difficult skill to get, but if you are creative, you might be able to come up with novel insights which will really shape the future. And so that goes nowhere, and that remains always important. But being flexible and agile is always going to be important because you're working on something and suddenly there is technological disruption or some other disruption, and therefore you have to pivot. That ability to pivot fast is going to be important. Okay, so these are really meta skills. I'm not saying that you should do this kind of engineering and learn this particular subfield of engineering. That I'm not saying. Of course, there are people who say that you should learn AI today because you will have to deal with AI. There are people who say that you should learn about how AI needs data and how to test AI and evaluate AI and all of that. I mean, those are in the interim, but right, we'll see. Some reports I have tried to read and understand what different people think, and they say that frontline workers, delivery, construction, food, things which are not purely intellectual but have an human element and a element of using our bodies, will not just brains, will always be important. Nursing, right? People say that education, teachers, those disciplines are still going to be around. There is a question on how AI disrupts that, but we don't know. But people believe that this is going to be important. And they also believe that there will be a decline in clerical, secretarial, admin, bank representative, data entry, call representative, those kinds of jobs, because those follow a certain set pattern, and there is a well defined way in which you have to respond. And once you somehow code it up with these LLMs and so on, the LLMs would be able to handle a lot of it. So that's sort of what we understand. Also, some level of emotional quotient, some way of creating narrative for people. So basically, people skills for people. Basically, those would be very important. How to manage people, how to make sure that organization is happy, and those kinds of things are going to be important. There is a discussion on what would be the future in terms of future of work. Would it be everybody has a job? Would it be gig economy? Would it be universal basic income and then you do more on top of it? Would it be smaller work weeks? Would it be like humans doing things by humans for humans, even though machines can do it better, like playing chess or creating art? We don't know the answers to these questions. These are all potential ways our future could look like. In a socialist society, a universal basic income which basically makes sure everybody has a basic life would be good. It is possible that we will start creating jobs just for people to have them. It is possible that we will more favor art done by humans, even though machines can do that art too, just like we celebrate our chess champions, even though machines can beat all these chess champions, right? So, different futures are possible depending upon how we develop and how the governments intervene and how we think about it. Nobody knows the exact mechanism, all of these mechanisms may come in, but I think having fundamental skills is always going to be important. Now, I want to make one more point here. I said leadership, and leaders are generally going to be humans. We believe that today. But the question is, what is the path to being a leader? The path to being a leader starts from entry level jobs and doing well through the steps and the ladder. And now, what we are saying is that the entry level jobs might get automated. Now, this creates a very interesting dynamics, huh? And I will bring in the education today as a case in point. I am seeing this trend, which is very disappointing to me, that all these students have started using LLMs left, right, and center in solving their assignments, in doing the term paper, writing their term papers, in writing the codes that were meant for them to learn. Now, up until now, we didn't have any LLM, and didn't have. I mean, once in a while, they can go to a human who knows it better than them, and they can help, quote unquote. But that's very rare, right? So the best that could happen was that one student does the assignment, and the other student copies from that assignment. They were plagiarism checkers. We were able to find them. That disincentivized them. And so, by and large, if you are doing your due diligence in doing a good teaching job and good evaluation job, people were learning. Okay. Now, what has happened is that suddenly they have at their disposal these extremely intelligent beasts models, which can give them the answers quickly. Okay. They can rewrite the answers in different styles. You can use different LLMs. So now suddenly at their disposal, they have a way to solve their problem very fast. Okay. Now imagine your children who are in first grade, second grade, and third grade who are learning addition, subtraction, and multiplication. If you show them that there is a calculator sitting here, we can't check whether you are using it or not. Just do these 100 addition questions. And if the child knows that they can do this 100 addition questions using the calculator, it is very natural for them to do it on the calculator. And the child would not learn addition as well, and then later not learn multiplication as well. And then later concepts will become unintuitive for him, and so on and so forth. I think we don't have this happen with our young children because they don't get calculators because we control. Unfortunately, the teachers today are not able to control how the students use LLMs. And therefore, a lot of these students, and I have heard it from all my friends all over the world, this is not a third world problem, this is not a global south problem, this is the problem everywhere in the world. Our students are learning less than what they were learning a couple of years ago. Because learning takes a little bit of a grind. As a computer scientist, I banged my head on the computer so many times before I could get the program to debug. But in that process, I learned something about debugging which was invaluable for the longer term, right? This is not short term optimization, it is long term optimization. We know that the grind today is going to help us tomorrow. Unfortunately, there is an easy way out, which is that we don't do the grind and we just use. So I asked my students recently, how many of you have done programming in this language? Many of them raised their hands, an AI language. And I then asked them, how many of you have done it by yourself without using an LLM? And almost all hands went down. Okay. I am so scared about the future because all these entry level jobs are going to go away. These students will end up learning less than their entry level counterparts a few years ago. I don't know how they will become leaders and who will become leaders. So I am worried about future of AI in education more than I am worried about every other space. And I don't have a good answer until we can control what our students, how our students get access to these LLMs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a fair picture you're painting, and it's across professions, Mosam. I would say that I've talked to consultants and lawyers and a whole range of different professions, and everyone is worried that the younger generation coming into that profession is not going to do the grind, as you were saying, eh? The grunt work that makes a great analyst then become a manager and then become a partner at a firm, or a great litigation lawyer who has to do all the grunt of the briefing and the drafting, right? If they're never doing the drafting because AI is doing the drafting, then do you really expect them to become the best arguing counsel either? Similarly with accounting and finance, right? If they've never done the actual analysis of a balance sheet on their own because the AI model was doing it better and faster, do you expect them to become the best auditors and best CFOs later? So I think the problem is across professions where the question becomes, in my mind at least, see, there is some grind. Looking back at my own education as well, which was, the point you were making, there was a lot of grind that you do as a student, as a young analyst in a firm, etc., etc., etc. But one can very safely look back and say, yes, some of that grind was extremely helpful in the long run. Some of it was not. If I was to refine the point you're making or the fear that you're articulating, there is some part of that grind that you actually look back and say, I don't think that was actually valuable. Some you don't realize was valuable, but there is some I think that is generally not valuable, some that is genuinely valuable. So then the question becomes, which parts of these grinds or this grunt work that we've done, that we spent a lot of our time, effort, energy on, actually is deservedly maybe done by someone else, and which I think we should continue to have our students and future analysts and future young engineers and young finance analysts, etc., do, so that we create some kind of optimal use of their energy, minds, physicalities. But I think it's a great question for everyone to be thinking about and on a daily basis being dealing with. But in the interest of time now, while we could go on, I think, on some of these, Mosam, and thank you for really laying out some of your deep insights on these both problems and opportunities that you're seeing with AI. Let me now move to our last segment, which we'll end with, which is the rapid fire segment, where I'll ask you a bunch of quick questions and short responses in order. So I'm going to start off with some of the questions that we were discussing with students. Explain the importance of someone in a high school today, anywhere in the world, for them to study AI.
AI is going to change every field, every field. So whatever you want to study, you will be working with AI in one or the other way. To understand who you are working with, it is important to understand its strengths, its weaknesses, and understand how it is built. Therefore, you should study AI.
For a smart, analytical, intelligent student today in, let's say, class 10, deciding whether he or she should go into the sciences or the humanities, which one would you
You
suggest?
should do what you like. This idea that once upon a time, I mean, there is some element of truth that if you are a science student, then as a mediocre science student, you can do better. But that truth may be changing in the future as AI takes over some of these boring entry level jobs and so on and so forth. So it is true today, but maybe in 5 to 10 years, it may not be true. So I would always say that if you are passionate about something, you do that, because then you will be really good at it, and it wouldn't matter what the disruptions are happening because you are really good at it. If you are really not passionate about something, which does happen to many people at that age, it's a harder question. You may want to try out some various things to understand what you might be good at, and if absolutely you have no comparison and it's all equal, then maybe science is still better today.
The bias has come out, Mazhab. No, I think, but great nuanced answer to that question. Generalists, are we going to live in a world of generalists or are we going to live a world of specialists?
You're going to live in the world of specializable generalists. So it is important to have broad skills, but it is important that once you see an opportunity, you are able to specialize yourself in that particular skill. Therefore, having fundamental analytical ability is going to be more important because that will allow you to specialize in the work that you're doing.
For IIT graduates in particular, let's say now, name three kinds of jobs that you think are going to be really attractive in the next 10, 15 years that maybe were not in the last 10, 15.
For IIT graduates, the only one job that is attractive is the one that pays them the most amount of money. Unfortunately, we come from a society which is still resource constrained. So they are, as I said, they have amazing analytical abilities. And many of my students have much stronger analytical abilities than me. They can pivot on anything and they can really do anything really. So if they find an opportunity which pays them money much more, they generally go in that direction at least early on. What happens is after a few years they may take a step back, they may realize that they are unhappy and they may pivot, but generally everybody wants to make a lot of money first before they want to do that. So first time graduates, that is exactly more or less what I'm observing. There are always exceptions. After a few years, I have seen people do PhD, I have seen people do an MBA and go into a different space. Some of them want to start startups, but then they are doing it from the point of personal happiness more because they now understand the lay of the land much better. So I don't think I have a very deep answer on that particular question.
Three human traits that you think AI models, LLMs, are adopting the fastest.
They have the ability to use knowledge to provide answer. That is the first thing. So uh, there's something called RAG, retrieval augmented generation. If you do set it up nicely, they are able to use the right kind of information in various text corpora and create sort of a narrative very fast. They have amazing language skills, without question. I think that should have come first. Their language skills are beyond doubt. Now they can summarize, they can translate, they can do this, that, and the other. They are adopting it very fast. They're able to construct arguments, they're able to create narratives. So all the language skills are just amazing. Their knowledge skills have improved with these retrieval augmentations. Their reasoning skills are improving, but there's they're slower. They are slower, and the ethical issues are farther behind. So this is the space. I think of them as language, knowledge, reasoning, and ethics. And amazing on language, good on knowledge, coming up slowly on reasoning, and slightly farther behind on the ethics.
Other than the US or China, which country's research ecosystem have you been most impressed with over the last few years?
Israel. Israel is a small country, and the amount of innovation that is coming out of Israel is amazing. I have seen so many amazing Israeli researchers who learn in Israel and stay in Israel. Many Israeli researchers who go to the West and come back. The amount of fraction of Israeli researchers, top researchers coming back to Israel, is much higher than the fraction of Indian researchers coming back to India, in my opinion. I mean, I've not done a study, but that's what I see from the common, yeah, interactions.
Will the next deep seek, and when I say deep seek, I mean a disruptive moment in the world of LLMs, will it likely come from the US or China, or most likely maybe a third country?
It'll likely come from either US or China. Yet, I don't think there is a third country which is at the same level of. See, research requires too many things happening because this is high risk, high reward. So, quantity really matters. It's unfortunate, but this is the real truth. We
Right.
try 100 ideas, one succeeds. So, we need countries where 100 ideas can be parallelly tried. So, the probability of that happening in the US and China is much higher because they have 100 ideas being tried.
One thing that you believe is the strength of the US in the world of AI vis-a-vis other countries, including China, and one strength that you think the Chinese have vis-a-vis other countries.
I think this is a political ish question because US is really good with being inclusive. A Chinese person can be happy in US, an Indian person can be happy in US. They create mechanisms. I know things are changing in the current political environment, but by and large, traditionally, you can be happy and you don't feel completely out of place in US as an immigrant. I have lived in the US. There are small pockets. There are Somalian people hanging out together. Everybody is welcome, and everybody has a role to play in the society. And it is sort of part of their fabric that you could be from a very different country or a very different subculture, and you are accepted. Basically, that acceptance US has somehow created right over time.
And is that
Uh,
true in the world of research also?
yeah,
Yeah.
less so, but yes, absolutely. I mean, you will not find as many African American researchers, but it could also be the family conditions they came up with, and the kind of jobs their parents are doing. So things improve over generations. So now, when I was younger, there were almost no African American researchers in the field of AI, but now the number has increased. Is it commensurate to the population in the world? Obviously not, but it is improving. So research world is also very accepting, and in fact they also think about diversity in their own ways. So they everybody believes that we should have diverse participation of various genders and points of view in research. So this is also true in research. The one benefit of China is that they don't speak good English. So what ends up happening is that because of that limitation, and because their society is very strong and very highly developed, there is very little reason for their talent to leave China now. And because of that, their country is really prospering, because they have amazing education system, and they have lots of resources, and they have lots of ideas that are being tried, and you can plug into those ideas, and you don't need to learn skills which are uncomfortable for you to learn, and so you just live in that country.
Great. Which application of AI, Mausam, keeps you up at night? Worried, not excited, worried.
I would not say application of AI, but as I said, I think, given that I'm an educator, the indiscriminate use of AI by students with no checks and balances does keep me up a little bit at night.
Uh,
I
uh,
mean, people can argue that automated weapons, etc., etc., but I think that we anyway have nuclear weapons. So, I mean, if we really wanted to kill the system, we could have killed the system. And if we wanted to go rogue, we could have gone rogue. We haven't done that. I have some hope in the society that it'll make fair-ish decisions when to use and when not to use. But students are, we are talking about these individual entities who are trying to optimize their grades in a very competitive environment, and that really does keep me up at night.
which application of AI gets you most excited at night? Doesn't let you sleep because you're so excited about it.
Now, all applications of AI in our country where our rural and lesser privileged did not have access to. So it could be great health, amazing healthcare. It could be actually now education in rural country. I mean, economies and villages and so on and so forth. It could also be, yeah, basically e-governance, whatnot. Basically, the point is that opportunities that our underprivileged did not have access to, I think that access will increase, especially in countries like India, and I'm really excited about it.
Which commentator or thinker of AI, the way you're thinking, obviously very broadly as well, right? Which commentator or set of commentators or thinkers do you follow most closely?
I follow a lot. This is not necessarily on the application side, but this is on the pure intelligence side. I really respect what Professor Subbarao Kambhampati at Arizona State University says. He's also a personal mentor, but I have seen his tweets, and I have seen the way he sort of presents what current models can and cannot do, and even very startling discoveries. And he really lays it out very beautifully. So, somebody I like. I think he's at Rao2Z on Twitter.
What about non-technical aspects of AI? People thinking about AI's impact on society, people's impact on how people are thinking, thinkers that you believe are thinking deeply about that aspect of AI's development.
I don't think I have an answer off the top of my head.
No problem. And the last two questions we end with, Mosam, every podcast where there's books that you would recommend for people who are listening who might be interested in the set of issues we've discussed, books that you'd recommend they read, and also future podcast guests that you'd recommend.
you know uh, i am I my work does not allow me to read a lot of popular books. Unfortunately, I know that there are a lot of books that have been written, and the recent that I purchased was AI on Trial, but I am yet to read it, so I don't know whether I can go as far as recommending it. In the childhood, I used to love this book called The Road Less Traveled. It sort of really allows us to understand what is discipline, and what are the various sort of meta views, meta skills, and beautiful understanding of that. But that's a more of a self-help psychology style book. I'm not sure that that's what you're looking for. So that had been my favorite when I was younger. At this point, I sort of more read commentaries and blogs of different people, and interact and so on and so forth. So those.
Blogs that you recommend or substacks that you recommend.
Yeah, so I mean, there are the blogs by Anthropic. There are I mean, there are lots of these blogs, but yeah. So, um, my Facebook feed keeps giving me some interesting, developments in AI. So I'm not a popular science reader, so I don't want to make those predictions, make those recommendations. in for people in India, people who think deeply enough, obviously Professor Ravindran from IIT Madras is amazing. Professor Sunita Saravagi from IIT Bombay is amazing, and Professor Somen Chakrabarti is also amazing from IIT Bombay. These are people who I look up to also, and who I respect for what they have done in the country and are continuing to do. There are lots of people who would deserve to be on your podcast. You should think about, for example, Professor Oren Etzioni at University of Washington. He retired and started the Allen Institute of AI. I mean, he would be an amazing person to talk to. Rao Kampampati, generally, I'm very fond of, as I said. So he would be absolutely phenomenal person to talk to. Pedro Domingos has a slightly controversial positions on AI. Just for that controversy, I think he would be an amazing person to talk to. He's also a very deep thinker. There's Professor Jason Eisner, who's also a very mathematical thinker. So he's great. Some other mathematical aspects of AI, and then there are a lot of younger people who are now at Meta and some of these companies and building LLMs. They would be really great for us to get an insight about the issues that they have dealt with.
Great. Thank you so much, Mausam, for these great recommendations also, but really the time you've taken out to share the essence of, what you've been working on for the last over a couple of decades now almost. So thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing great research and great, of course, students coming out of your fold. So thank you for all that you've done in AI and all that I'm sure you will in the coming decades. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.